Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In our previous videos, we have discussed the second order system and the root locus of the different systems. So today we will discuss more about the root locus. But before discussing that one, I want to revise the second order system briefly. Okay, so we know that the characteristic equation for a second order system is this one, s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. Here you can see the second order system. This is g of s, the feed forward transfer function. H of s is equal to 1. It's a unity feedback system. So for this closed loop system, we can write down the transfer function like that, the closed loop transfer function. And here you can see this is the denominator of this transfer function, and that is the characteristic equation. By putting it equal to 0, we can find out the roots of this equation, and those are the poles. So the roots of this equation, if we solve it, s1 and s2, that will be equal to minus zeta omega n plus minus j omega d, and this can be written as minus zeta omega n plus minus j omega n into 1 minus zeta square, because our omega d is equal to omega n into 1 minus zeta square. So if we look at the position of the poles with the variation of the zeta, so you can see this circle, our poles move over the circle. If the zeta is equal to 0, we are at this position, our poles will be over here, and the system is said to be undamped system, and its step response will be the oscillatory. It will be a marginally stable system. But if we increase zeta, let's suppose that some value of the zeta, so our poles will move over here, and they will be the complex conjugate pair. If we further increase zeta, our poles will come, let's suppose, at this position, and if we keep on increasing zeta, our poles will move towards the real axis, and finally when the zeta is equal to 1, both of the poles are at this position, and our system is said to be a critically damped system, right? And once we increase the zeta above 1, these poles starts moving on the real axis, right? So these are the two poles, one pole is over here and this second pole is over here. When the zeta is greater than 1, our poles moves over the real axis. When the zeta is between 0 and 1, our poles move over this circle, right? Starting from here, when the zeta is equal to 0, they are at this position, and if the zeta is increased, once it becomes 1, they will come to this position, but if the zeta is between 0 and 1, our poles will be over this circle. And if the zeta is less than 1, then our poles will move in the right half plane and the system will become unstable. Right? So now let's suppose that our poles are at this location. One pole is over here and the second pole will be the mirror image that will be over here. So now if I take this line that is joining the origin of this plane, right, sigma j omega plane or the s plane, this is our s plane, right? So the origin of this one is this 0 0, and if you look at this pole, let's suppose this is s1, so s1 will be equal to minus zeta omega n plus j omega n into 1 minus zeta square. So here you can see the real part of this one. So the real part is this one, zeta omega n, and definitely it will be negative because it is along the negative real axis. And the imaginary part is this one, that is omega d, that is equal to omega n into 1 minus zeta square. So now we can find out this one considering this triangle, and let's suppose that this is the angle alpha over here. So how to find out this hypotenuse of this right angle triangle? We can simply find out this radius of the circle using this expression, that is zeta omega n square or minus zeta omega n square plus omega n into 1 minus zeta square and the whole square of this one. So if we simplify this one, we are going to get equal to omega n. So the radius of this circle will be equal to omega n, right? And what about this angle? This angle can be calculated with the help of this triangle, right? And in this triangle, if we use the cosine identity, so cos of theta will be equal to zeta omega n, this part, divided by this omega n. So these two will be cancelled out. So cos of alpha is equal to zeta. So alpha can be obtained by taking cos inverse of the damping factor, that is zeta, and the radius in this diagram, this radius is equal to the natural frequency. So radius is equal to omega n, and the alpha can be calculated as cos inverse of zeta. So by changing the zeta, the response of our second order system will change, and that is shown over here in this diagram, that if the zeta is equal to 0, you can see the oscillatory response for the step input. So it will be like that, and if we increase the zeta, the response will be like that, right? So oscillations will be damped out. So if we keep on increasing the zeta, once it becomes equal to 1, you can see there is no oscillation, and finally we are going to attain the steady state. And if the zeta becomes greater than 1, there is a lot of friction, you can say, and the system response is going to become smaller one. So now if I look at this one, I can mark this diagram like that, our poles are at this position, this one and this one, and the distance from the origin is omega n. This part is omega d, that is equal to omega n into 1 minus zeta square, and this part is equal to zeta omega n, and this angle is phi or alpha that we have considered up. Okay, so as we change the zeta, this is the line that is representing the zeta of 0.2, and as this angle reduces, so basically our zeta is increasing. That you can observe over here. When the zeta is equal to 1, we are on the real axis, right? And when the zeta is equal to 0, we are somewhere over here. Over here zeta is equal to 0. At this position, let's suppose zeta is equal to 0.9. So over here, let's suppose zeta is equal to 0.8. So as this angle alpha will be decreasing, our zeta will be approaching to the 1, right? So that is shown over here, the different lines. When the zeta is equal to or 1, you are over the real axis. This is the line for zeta equal to 0.9. So if you draw this circle, the root locus of the second order system, so when the zeta will be 0.2, the roots will be over here. For 0.5, it will be over here, and so on, right? So you can sketch these lines in the MATLAB with the help of the sgrid command. So sgrid plots these zeta lines, the damping factor lines, and then looking at the intersection of these lines with the second order response, you can determine the important parameters of the system. For example, if I say that I want to design a system which should have the damping factor of 0.5, then I will adjust the poles over here at the zeta line that is equal to 0.5. Now if I say I want to adjust the response of the systems in such a way that the damping factor is 0.9, so I will adjust my poles at these lines intersection, 0.9 zeta line with the root locus of the second order system. So it's very helpful while designing the system. Or if we know the position of the poles, we can comment about the damping factor of the system. So you can use these lines for designing or for analyzing the second order system. Okay, now let's see that we have discussed the root locus of the examples in the previous videos in detail. So now looking at the position of the poles, you can guess about the root locus using the rules which we have already discussed in our previous video. So let's suppose that we have the 3 poles, and we know that the real axis between the 2 poles or zeros will be the part of the root locus if on the right hand side of that point there is odd number of poles or sum of poles and zeros. So over here you can see there is odd number 1, so this is the real part. So there will be, as these are the poles, so there will be the breakaway of these poles from the real axis, and they will move towards infinity, and the third pole will move toward the 0, which is sitting somewhere at the infinity. And if you have this system like that, one pole is over here and there are 2 complex poles, then the root locus will be somewhat like that. They will be moving towards the zeros which are sitting at the infinity, and this will also be moving towards the 0 which is sitting somewhere at the infinity. And if your system has the structure like that, 2 real poles and the 2 complex poles, Okay, so these real poles will move along the first of all the real axis, and let's suppose that it will move over here and it will go over here, and maybe these complex poles will be moving along these asymptotes towards the zeros which are sitting at the infinity. Similarly, if you have the structure like that, your root locus will be like that with the variation of the gain k. Your poles will be moving like this, and for position of the poles like this, if you have two poles over here and the complex poles over here, so it will be moving like that, and these poles will be coming toward each other and then will break away from the real axis. So you can with the practice you can guess about the root locus by just observing the position of the poles. If the poles are like that, they will be moving away from this one, and these poles will be moving like that, and this pole will be moving toward the infinity. So you can say that the pole and pole repel each other, because if you observe that one, here we have one set of the pole, and there this is the next pair of the pole. So when they are going to break away, so it is going to move away from this pole. So it is basically, you can say, repelling this one. So pole and pole repel each other. You can use this concept for the sketching of the root locus. When this is coming over here, so it will be repelled by that one, and that's why it will move over here. When it will be coming over here, it will be repelled, and so on. So coming over here, and then it will move away, so this will be repelling that locus as well. Okay, so now if we have the zero, so one pole will definitely move towards the zero in the root locus, because we know that the poles start their moving over the locus and finally ends at the zero. So over here you can see the two poles conjugate pair, and this pole coming over here, and let's suppose moving towards this zero, and this pole from here then will move towards its zero, which is sitting at the infinity. And if we have the structure like that, 1 0 and pole, so this portion of the real axis is the part of the root locus, so this pole will move towards this zero, and these poles will move towards the zeros which are sitting at the infinity. And if we have the pole position and zero position like this, two complex poles and the two real poles under zero, so this portion of the real axis is the part of the root locus, so these poles will move towards each other and then they will break away. One pole will move towards the zero and the other pole will move towards the zero sitting at the infinity, and these poles will be repelled by these ones, so these will be moving towards the infinity. And for this one 1 0 over here, so this pole will be moving towards this zero, and this pole will be moving towards infinity, this pole like this, and so on. So if you have two poles over here breaking away from here, moving toward this zero, and this pole will be moving towards the zero, which is sitting at the infinity. And for this placement of the poles and zero, two zeros and two poles, so these poles will move toward the respective zeros, so they will break away first of all over here, and then there is the break in, and this one pole will move towards this zero and the other pole towards this zero, right? So because why they will break away, because this is the portion of the root locus, this portion of the real axis. Similarly, this portion of the real axis is the root locus, but this is not the root locus, because if you take a test point over here, there are even number of poles on the right hand side. So this is not the root locus, so there will be a breakaway from some point in between, and there will be a break in between two zeros, because the poles will be coming towards zeros, and if this is the part of the root locus, so that's why we are saying that there is the break in. Okay, so you can sketch about the root locus of the system looking at the position of the poles and zeros. Now let's see that what is the impact of addition of a pole in a system. If you have, let's suppose, one pole, so you can see this is the root locus. If we apply the root locus rules discussed in the previous videos. Now if I introduce one additional pole in that one, so the root locus becomes like this, right? So previously it was like this. Now if we introduce another pole, so the root locus will become like that now at certain value of the k, because when we change the k from 0 to infinity, that is basically the root locus, right? So when the k is equal to 0, the pole position is this open loop pole. So but when k is varied, So these poles will start moving, and at certain value of the k, you can say that your system is going to enter into the your closed loop poles are going to enter into the right half plane. So your system is going to become unstable. So addition of the pole basically pulls your root locus towards right. Here you can see it was moving over here, but once you introduce another pole, it has been pulled from here towards the right half plane. And if you have introduced another pole, it is further pulled towards your right half plane. So increasing the number of poles makes your system to move toward instability. Relative stability decreases, because you can see over here the closed loop poles now are entering into the right half plane if we increase the poles. So when we add a pole, basically the system stability is affected, relative stability is affected, and that basically becomes lower because your closed loop poles may enter into the right half plane. Now let's look at the effect of addition of a zero. Let's suppose that we have this system in which we have three poles, and the root locus of that one is shown over here. These poles are moving like this, and this pole is moving toward the zero, which is sitting at the infinity. Similarly, the zeros are sitting over infinity for these poles. Okay, now if I say I am going to introduce a zero over here, if I introduce a zero over here, so this pole will move toward this zero, and the root locus over here, you can see it is pulled towards the zero. This zero is basically, you can say, attracting this root locus, so it is pulling it toward itself. So uh, these you can say, as compared to this portion, this is moved in this direction. So basically your root locus is shifted towards the left, and the stability is basically improved. Here you can see it is not going to cross the j omega axis, so it is improving the stability. Now if I introduce this zero more closer to this set of poles, if I introduce the zero over here, so it is going to pull the root locus toward itself. So your root locus is further moving into the left half plane, right? So your system is going to become more stable, rather completely stable in this case, because there is no j omega crossover. And if I introduce the zero over here, so now the root locus breakaway point from the real axis will be shifted over here, and your root locus is further shifted in towards your left half plane. So by the introduction of the zero, our root locus basically shift towards the left, and our system stability improves, right? So now let us discuss an example of the root locus in the MATLAB, and then we will in the next video we will discuss the compensators. Now let's see that how we can sketch the root locus in the MATLAB. So we are basically going to sketch the root locus of this transfer function, open loop transfer function, that is equal to k over s plus 1 into s plus 3. There are two poles, one pole is at -1, the other pole is at -3. Okay, so now let's look at the instructions. Let's define that k is equal to 3, then the numerator, that is equal to k, and then the denominator, that is obtained by convolving the two functions. The one is s plus 1, so 1, the coefficient of s is 1, and s power 1 is 1, then s power 0 is the coefficient of that term is 1. S power 1 coefficient is 1 and s power 0 coefficient is 3. So when you are considering this coefficient, you should consider all powers of the s. So if it is s square plus 1, so the coefficients will be 1, 0 and 1. As it is s and 1, so 1 and 1 will be considered. Okay, so 1 and 1, convolving it with 1 and 3 is convolving the convolve command conv basically multiplies these two terms, s plus 1 and s plus 3. Okay, so now you have the numerator and the denominator defined over here, then the denominator, that is defined with the help of this one. Now with the help of this transfer function instruction or command, you can define the transfer function, the numerator and the denominator, right? So g of s underscore ol is representing the open loop. So open loop transfer function is given or defined by this instruction. With the help of this one, we are going to define a figure window and we are going to name it 1, and then with the help of this command we are sketching the root locus of the open loop transfer function g of s underscore ol, so that you can see over here. Now what is the function of this command? It sketches the zeta and omega n. So for the time being I am going to consider zeta is equal to 0.4. The first portion is the zeta and the second portion is for the omega n circle. So let's first of all consider that omega n is equal to 2, right, and the zeta is equal to 0.4. So it will only sketch the line for the zeta of 0.4 and the omega n of 2. Now what is the function of this command? It sets the x-axis limit, that your x-axis will be from -4 to 1, and similarly with the help of this command we are setting the y-axis limit. Y-axis will be starting from -4 and will be up to 4, right? So first of all now let's observe this code, that how it is going to respond. So let's run it, and here you can see the root locus. So there are two poles, one pole is over here and the other one, and here is the sketch of the root locus with the help of the rlocus command. And we have sketched the zeta line of 0.4 up to omega n equal to 2, so that you can see this is the omega n circle, right? If your omega n is equal to 2, so your closed loop poles will be moving over this circle, right, for the second order system, and for not for this particular root locus, for the second order system. For this system the root locus is like that when your k is equal to 0 you are at this point, and when your k will be increasing these poles will be moving toward the infinity. Now let's draw more zeta lines. So how to draw more zeta lines? Let's suppose I want to draw it 0.5 as well. So let's introduce 0.5 and run this code. So now you can see there are two lines, 0.4 and 0.5, right? Similarly you can sketch more zeta lines, 0.6, let's suppose 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and let's suppose that we also introduce for 0.1, 0.2 and 0.3. so whatever zeta line is required you can introduce over here and here. Now you can see all of these zeta lines. Now I also want to extend it over the higher value of omega n. So I am now going to sketch the omega n circle of radius 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So now let's run this. So now you will be seeing all of this. This is the circle of omega n equal to 1, this is the circle of omega n equal to 2, omega n is equal to 3, omega n equal to 4 and so on. So these are the zeta lines. So sgrid is a very useful command to sketch these zeta lines and the omega n circles, okay. And the x limit that you can see -4 to 1. So in this -4 to 1, and the y limit is from -4 to 4, so that you can observe over here -4 to 4, right? So here is the root locus. Now for different gains you can see the position of the poles, or for different position of the poles you can find out what gain will be there. So for that you should use this one, the data tip, right? So selecting that one and then click anywhere over here. Let's suppose if I click over here it will give me the information that if my closed loop pole is at this point, so our gain will be 2.68. the pole position is -2 plus 2.65, that you can observe, -2 from here and 2.65 over the imaginary axis, right? And the damping ratio is 0.602, that you can see where this is a 0.6 line and it's slightly lower than that one, 0.602. okay, so it will give you the information, and you can use the keyboard keys to move this point that you can see where it's moving onward. So if our closed loop pole is at this position, it will give you all the required information. At this point our overshoot will be equal to 7.9. now if I move the closed loop poles down, right, the zeta is basically changing, that you can see now the zeta is approximately 0.9. so for that you can see and the gain should be 0.625, and at this point the overshoot will be 0.12%. So if you move it onward, you can see for higher gains you are moving up, and your damping is basically decreasing if you move it upward. So 0.451, and the overshoot is also increasing because your damping is decreasing. And if I move it down, so it will be at any point you can find out the gain. Now from here it will enter into the real axis. So this is the in this way you can find out the gain for particular position of the pole and the damping factor at that point. Okay, so similarly you can place the other data tips by clicking the at other position, that if the pole is over here, what will be the parameters of your system, so that you can move on up and down with the help of the arrow keys on your keyboard. So this is a very useful tool. You can analyze that where will be the your poles for particular value of the gain, and what will be the overshoot at that point. Okay, and what this second part of the code is doing, it is plotting the step response of this system. So we have considered a separate figure, not this one. Figure 1 was over here, figure 2, it will have a separate figure window. And let's suppose that our gain is equal to 2.38, and over here we are going to first of all develop the closed loop transfer function. We want to look at the step response of the closed loop. So feedback command has been used, and this k multiplied by gs, that will be the total loop gain, right? And the 1 is indicating that our feedback path is of HFS is equal to 1, right? And by default it's the negative feedback. So now the step info is obtained with the help of this command, and step plot is step response sketch is obtained by this plot. Okay, so here you can see that one, the step response. Okay, so let me first of all clear all of these things. So what is basically this one? This is the step response, and if you want to look at the peak response, so if you select this one from this, right click, so it will mark a point at the peak. The peak amplitude is 0.76, and it is going to occur at the 1.27 time, so that you can see overhead peak time. And if you want to look at the settling time, so you can mark it like that. Settling time, we have already discussed it in detail in the previous videos. The rise time information, that will be obtained from here, and the steady state information, here is the steady state, right? So you can you can get the information over this graph by using this one. So you must explore the right click options from your MATLAB. Okay, and what was the function of this step info command? Basically it is going to give you the information of the system at the command prompt. So here is the response of this step info over the command window, that you can see it is going to give you the rise time, settling time, minimum settling time, maximum settling time, overshoot, right, and the peak value and the peak time, right, for this particular transfer function. And you can use this command for other transfer function to study the transient response parameters of your system. So in this video, if I conclude, we have seen the root locus for different types of the for different positions of the poles and zeros, and we have seen how the addition of a pole and a zero affects the root locus. And then we have seen the MATLAB instructions for sketching the zeta lines and the omega n, which are very useful when we will be designing the compensator in the upcoming lectures for a particular system. That's all from this video. Thank you very much.